What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Real Me and a movie podcast where you really didn't ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, well, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you're searching on the interwebs for another movie podcast, or if you just want to get your movie fix, you want to go to a place where you just love talking about the best thing in the world, movies, you want to just talk with other passionate people and just listen to two guys ramble on about it, then you have come to the right place. Hopefully we didn't scare you off or anything, but if you want to give us a shot, go ahead, and we will always welcome you if you either stay or if you just want to leave right now. I mean, well, either way, we will still love you. But if you are new to the show, welcome. But if you're a returning listener, welcome back. But if you are new, what we typically do is we'll go over some movie news, some movie trailers that drop throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys. Then we will have a review or reviews of movies that have dropped on said weekend. And, of course, box office results to accompany that. This is episode 248. This one's going to be a little funky, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because we haven't been on in 2 weeks. And so this is kind of like a backlog of like news and trailers and, nothing really too significant came out. So, we're reviewing a Netflix film, Hold the Dark, which dropped last Friday, but I was busy last weekend, and I'm still going to be busy this entire month. I'm just giving you guys a heads up, but we will reveal when we're doing the other episodes, so we're not holding you guys out too long. But we appreciate your patience because it's been a while, Joel. It feels like it's been 5 or 10 years, but it's we're finally here. We're finally back, and we're going to be doing a Netflix film. And of course, you got two surprise reviews. Before we get into any of all of that business, Joel, how are we doing? It's been a couple weeks for our listeners. What have you been up to?
It's been a pretty eventful couple of weeks. Not so much for me, definitely for you. I've been following all of it. It's a lot of events, a lot of stuff happening. I hope that you're getting proper sleep. I certainly hope. But yeah, for me, just kind of chilling at work. I had a big day yesterday. Saw 2 movies, including a big Best Picture contender that is about to drop in a couple of weeks. So that was kind of one of the bigger things.
Joel, stop teasing our listeners. You don't have to give away your thoughts. He saw First Man. I am jealous.
I saw First Man.
I am jealous.
And I'm being evil and not telling anybody what I thought of it. There is no embargo. But I'm not going to do that because I don't like doing that. I don't like doing it partly because I want to be evil and curse Chase. I'm just kidding. But also just because it's kind of disrespectful to all of you listeners out there. I know that this is kind of the time of building buzz for movies and all of that. But for me, it's just like you can't see it for a couple of weeks, so I might as well just remain quiet about it right now. But certainly a fun experience seeing it, especially that early, because it was one of the first screenings for critics and press of the whole circuit that it's been around. I think it's only otherwise screened in L.A., so that's pretty cool. We got it before Chicago, I think even before New York, so that's pretty cool, because I think it's screening later this week. I think maybe Thursday night or something like that in New York. So we were one of the first. Definitely a fun experience doing that. Otherwise, some personal stuff. My grandfather is aging, and he's just kind of been on the slow road to getting into a nursing home, and finally, after like 2 years, got him into one. It's very hard with insurance and all of that. So that's a major thing. Very happy. It's about an hour away, but it's a pretty good situation all around, and happy for him there. Otherwise, just kind of chilling. Excited for the coming months of Oscar stuff. And in fact, I'm going to be talking about some Oscar stuff today, but I'll get to that a little bit later. Still, though, the season's shaping up. It's going to be a really competitive one, and I can't wait to see how it all comes together. So that's some of the major stuff happening right now.
That's the scoop in Joel's life. The scoop indeed. Yeah, I feel you, man. It's not easy putting a grandparent in a home or just anywhere that's not their home. I think one of my grandmothers did that a couple years ago or something like that, and it's it's not fun to watch. And so at least your grandfather's in good health, right? Like he's trucking along and everything.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's he's nearing 90, or he is 90. He is 90 as of this year.
That's impressive. I don't even want to go near that man. He intimidates me. I wish.
And he has not a single gray hair on his head. It's insane.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's all red hair. I mean, he's had some health problems. He was a heavy drinker earlier on, and caused some problems because of that within the family. But nevertheless, yeah, he's had some health problems recently. He can't walk very well, for instance. But and he's kind of getting into that part where he's forgetful of things. But
yeah,
he's still trucking along. You can understand him when he talks, and
that's good,
and all that. So
you got to take it day by day, Joel. And it sounds like
exactly
you guys are just doing that. But yeah, it sounds like it's crazy, guys. Like when Joel and I do like the show earlier in the year, we're just like, all right, 2018, what a great year. And it's like these past 2 months, man, you never would expect it to just go like your life to go down this way. Like, without getting into too much detail, I told you guys, one of my grandparents passed last month, and of course I'm trying to move out at the end of this month, and a bunch of other stuff with like my parents moving. It's just, guys, it's nuts. And a bachelor party last weekend, which was fun, by the way. I went to Houston, which is ironic because I think they were having their First Man one of the press tours down there, and I did go to the NASA Center, so I probably missed it. But I didn't go down there for that, but it was kind of funny to see that. But yeah, and of course I got a wedding to go to in a couple weeks. It's just nuts, guys. But that's life for you. And I think the biggest thing is that I just appreciate you guys just being patient. I know this is like extremely late, and so will next week's. But I just, I appreciate it because, a lot of people, they might just give up and be like, oh, man, not every Sunday. Well, these two are fakes. And it's like, well, guys, when you're 248 episodes in, sometimes life happens and you can't do a week. So,
yeah,
patience is a virtue.
It's totally understandable. And in fact, it's been so crazy that I forgot about one thing that did happen for me, which is that I joined the AMC Stubbs A-list.
Oh, man, look at you, Joel. Moving up in the world.
Yeah. Exactly, and I'm doing my first 2 movies on that plan on Thursday evening. It's a Venom Stars Born back-to-back double feature. So I'm going to try to do double features. Generally speaking, I do 2 movies a week, which is one less than is actually allowed on the plan. So it's pretty neat. And so yeah, those are my first 2. On that plan, and I'm certainly looking forward to that experience.
Oh my god,
and that was the other thing.
I mean, Joel has very weird double feature nights, but this might be up there. This might be like a top 3 of the year. Strangest. So I can't wait to like.
I did my 2 extra reviews this week back to back, and that was definitely one of the stranger ones, but. Yeah, this is certainly up there.
Well,
especially because of the thing that happened today with a bunch of apparently like trolls on Twitter who were telling people to go see A Star Is Born instead of Venom this weekend or something. I don't know if you heard about that. But
yeah, I heard the Lady Gaga like fans were just like, don't go see Venom.
The best one that I saw was a take on the little scene in the Star Is Born trailer where Bradley Cooper says he just wants to take another look at her.
Yep. And
instead they replace it with, I just wanted to tell you again not to see Venom 2018. Anyway, it's great. And then it shows, her little smile that's all cute and everything. It's really, really funny. So
oh, that's so great.
Lady Gaga stands, I guess, to use the back in the popular domain name from the Eminem song of the same name. That's where that came from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
crazed fans.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. We're both seeing A Star Is Born on Thursday night. I'm seeing Venom tomorrow, and then last night I know Joel was saying that he saw First Man. I saw Bad Times at the El Royale. And now I can talk about it. I can tell you guys right now without going into any detail. I liked it a lot. It was a very, very slick studio whodunit Clue thriller, and I loved every second of it. But yeah, so just a busy time indeed, Joel. And I think this will be the weekend to not only kick off Oscar films, but also kick off winter blockbusters. So it's like, this is the weekend to like set the tone for everything. So I can't wait. But that's just to catch up you guys on the past couple weeks of what we've been doing. We've been seeing a lot of stuff, and I guess just real quick, I did watch Maniac on Netflix. Very good stuff.
I've been hearing that. Yeah,
Joel,
really
you
need to watch that.
Yeah, and then that's about it. So, Joel, without any further ado, sir, what has been going on in that news world? Because I cannot wait to talk about this first one.
Yeah, it's really weird. This first one's huge. It's really definitely the biggest bit of news. I was surprised though, because I was looking through the backlog of news from the past couple of weeks, since it's been since the Predator episode that we were on the air, and not a whole lot has happened. But this is definitely the big thing that happened, and that is the fact that Fox totally jumbled up all of their release dates and made it really hard for others to compete with them. So this is really interesting. I have to start with kind of the second move, because okay, so there's a series of 4 moves that they made, and I'm going to circle back around to the first one, because the first one is the most curious, but I want to keep it until the end. And by first one, I mean in chronological order of release date. So the second one is the fact that they moved Alito Battle Angel from their December 21st date to February 14th, which is really interesting for a lot of reasons, most of which is the fact that and we'll get into this more in depth in a couple of weeks whenever I talk about visual effects Oscar contenders. But this movie, I think, was the biggest contender of the year in terms of visual effects. You just think about the scope of them, the fact that the main character is mainly visual effects, and I think that widens the field considerably, the fact that it's moved out of the release calendar where it would have been eligible. Now it's eligible for 2020 Oscars, which will be a whole other thing. So that's one. But people are probably thinking, wait a minute, though. That's where Dark Phoenix moved, was February 14th. Yeah, it was, until they moved it to June 7th. Okay, so this is where things become a big house of cards, because up until now, every month from February onward seemed to have until this last week. And in fact, I forgot to put this in the notes, but another company made another big move. I didn't even notice it. I saw no reporting. I think it was swallowed up by this one. But until this past week, every month from December until I think May, if I'm thinking correctly, had a superhero blockbuster. You had Aquaman in December, Hellboy in January, Dark Phoenix in I'm sorry, did I say Hellboy in January? Yeah, Dark Phoenix in February, Captain Marvel in March, Shazam in April, which we can get into that another time, but it's currently there, and then of course Avengers in May if they don't move it back a week. So now what's happened is that from February onward, we have one every month, and 1 month has 2 superhero movies. What do I mean? Chase, are you aware of the other thing that moved this week?
No, Joel. What is that?
Okay, so now I'm going to tell you and this is where the Shazam release date gets even more baffling, because something moved. So now from February onward, we have 1 per month until I think August. So now we have in February, I'm sorry, in March onward. We have, of course, Captain Marvel. Then in April, we have Shazam, and a week later, Hellboy, because that moved from January. I don't even know if you knew that, but it was originally in the second weekend of January. That was going to be our first review episode of the year, I believe. I'm thinking correctly. Um, and then it moved to April 12th, which is 1 week after Shazam. I don't know what that means for Shazam. That's a whole other topic that I think that we should get into some other time. But that's what it is currently, unless they move that one. So then, about 3 weeks after Hellboy, we have, or 2 weeks, depending on if they move it, we have Avengers 4. And then in June, we have now Dark Phoenix. In July, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. And in August, currently at least, we have the New Mutants. So, and I haven't even looked past that. I don't know if we have anything in September. I can't remember, but this is insane. This has also caused them to move Gambit, which has been in production since roughly 1984, it seems like. And that one has moved from June 7th to March of 2020 to another decade entirely, which is all very interesting to me because I feel like they would have wanted to try to keep this in 2019 just to kind of cap off that year. But I guess their thinking is that Dark Phoenix can do that, or the New Mutants can do that if they don't move that one like back to January, February, or something. But I want to get your thoughts on this because, one, should they move the New Mutants somewhere else, maybe earlier in the year, to kind of free up some space, or do you think that Warner Brothers should pounce on the opportunity to move Shazam into a February slot? Or like a January slot. And I know that that seems insane to ask you, but think about this. We don't know Shazam. I know that there's a lot riding on Shazam, and I've said that before. I think that everything is actually kind of riding on this movie. But imagine if they just decide to campaign Aquaman and Shazam at the same time and kind of release them about a month from each other, and then focus all of their energy on Wonder Woman 1984 for the rest of the year. Because I feel like now that they have this opportunity to move Shazam, it places slightly less of a burden on that movie to prove so much. I still think that there's a lot riding on it because it seems to be a little less. A little less of a sure thing than Aquaman, certainly less of a sure thing than Wonder Woman 1984. I just can't make sense of all this. I think that Fox came in and kind of screwed things up for a lot of other studios. What are your thoughts about all of this?
Well,
and also I didn't circle around to it. The most interesting thing though is that they filled the December 21st release date with a PG-13 cut of Deadpool 2. And I'm actually hearing that this is not just some actual cut, like a director's cut. It's going to be a satirical cut of the movie. And from what I'm hearing, it's going to star Fred Savage in the role of the kid from The Princess Bride being told a story by Deadpool. And actually, I saw a screenshot, and it looks like they shot it in the same set as The Princess Bride. So anyway, that blows my mind. I don't know. I feel like Scott Mendelson over at Forbes is probably correct that they're probably worried about, or they're trying to appease the Chinese box office. It's nothing to do with the American one. I think that they're just opening it in America because they have to, but I think it's mostly because of the Chinese box office. But yeah, what's your thoughts about all of this?
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just go to the top and go all the way to the bottom. With the Deadpool thing, at first glance, you're just like, why on earth would they do this? Why would you, even if it's not a director's cut and you're making a satirical cut, that's still like new stuff. Like, why would you put so much effort and energy just to appeal to China? Well, I'll tell you why. If they release this on December 21st, and it is a huge smash success, which I actually will put $10 on it and tell you that it will, but if it is a success, that's going to give Disney a look at potential installments of the franchise when they eventually get their grubby little Mickey Mouse hands on the company. So that's what I think is they're watching to see if that goes over so well that they might dip their toe into a PG-13 version for everybody. I have no clue. I also think if it's a satirical PG-13 cut, it's almost like they're making fun of them, which, you know, that's kind of like Deadpool's like sense of humor, and I kind of am okay with it. But if it was like any other movie, it just would seem kind of off to me, because it does almost seem like, all right, China, if you don't want to accept my R-rated movie, here is a watered-down movie that's going to be so made fun of that we're basically laughing at you. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how to feel about it. It's just kind of like whatever, but it's definitely for business moves, to see how well it does and what Disney wants to do with it whenever they get their hands on it. The Alita thing, I mean, I understand why they moved. I mean, that weekend already gives me a headache just thinking about it. So I guess on a business move, that makes sense to me. But you are right, though. It would have been one of the front runners for visual effects because, Robert Rodriguez, that's what he kind of touts himself on is, you know, visual effects and green screen work and just overall the visual look of his movies, excluding the Spy Kids movies because obviously those were meant to look bad. But everything else, he always puts in that visual effort. And Joel's correct. Since the main character is completely just all CGI, it almost kind of reminds me of like a Caesar, like, you know, from Planet of the Apes and how they were all nominated for visual effects because, you know, all the monkeys were all mocap and most of the environments were, you know, animated. So, yeah, I feel like that could have been 20th Century Fox's kind of play in terms of visual effects. Okay, so for the Dark Phoenix thing, I'm actually not irritated that they moved it to June because it actually gives them a wide margin of business where I actually think it's actually kind of a genius move because it is the first major one to follow Avengers 4. People are going to be hyped after Avengers 4. They're going to want to see another superhero movie next. So I actually think that positioning is not that bad. Now, I think that they should move. I think they should move the New Mutants up to their original spot in February, because that's where it originally was, and then they pushed it. Because what I've been hearing is that they still need to do reshoots for New Mutants, and that's why they keep pushing it back. And I'm telling you guys this, it's all because of two people, Sophie Turner and oh God, Joel, what's the Maisie Williams? Yeah. So those two are the culprits, and you're like, well, why are they the ones pushing all these movies back? They are currently filming the final season of one of the biggest television shows in history, and so they have to do not only the season of that show, they have to go back and do reshoots on that show. They have to do reshoots on these movies, but that show is more important. So it just so happens that they shot both of these movies before they even started this final season. But this final season is taking up so much time to where when they're done, they're finally available for reshoots, but then, oh wait, they might get snapped back to do reshoots on the show. So it's just a mess. And of course, you know, with the whole Disney 20th Century Fox kind of switch right now, I'm sure that doesn't really help either. So I actually don't mind the Dark Phoenix switch, but I'm kind of like with you, where I actually wouldn't mind if New Mutants or Shazam moves up to February and capitalize on that before we get the Captain Marvel Avengers 4 storm that's going to be brewing in the spring. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. Did I Gambit? I could care less. Yeah. I think what
at this point I don't even want Gambit to come out. Honestly, it's just so tiring.
I'm so exhausted of hearing, like, how does Channing Tatum feel? The fact that these news stories keep breaking about his own movie being pushed, and I'm just like, do you even want to be associated with it anymore? But anyways, I think what turned me off the most is not even the fact that they've pushed it 500 times, and like Joel said, its first set photo was like back in 1892. The thing that disturbs me the most about it is that Simon Kinberg said it was gonna be like a raunchy sex comedy. I forgot what the quote was, but it was something like that. I was like, no, No, like I know that he's like a Cajun magician, but let's not like go completely off the rails with it. It's like, you know, I don't know, if we turn like Thor into a horror film, it's like that doesn't make sense. Like you need to like stay somewhat close to the vest, since most people don't even know who Gambit is. So that's my thoughts on everything. So some good, some bad, some idiotic. It's almost like a perfect representation of 20th Century Fox. They're scrambling right now because they don't know what's going to happen with their company, so they're kind of just like throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And it's like watching a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off. So, you know, that's kind of the representation of all these schedule switches. That it's just, hey, let's go over here, let's go over there. You know, let's mess up this, let's mess up that. It's nuts, Joel. It's nuts.
Well, two things real fast, and then I'll move on. But one, I think that maybe the Dark Phoenix move signals that they're kind of bringing that whole storyline to an end as Avengers comes to an end. And also, maybe they're going to have somebody from Fox's superhero catalog appear in Avengers 4 in some way. And so, you know, right after the movie comes out, they'll be able to see Dark Phoenix. I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb theory, probably. But then the other thing is the fact that I remember the good old days of right after X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, when there were going to be Deadpool movies, or a Deadpool movie and a Gambit movie. And the Deadpool movie was, of course, going to star Ryan Reynolds. No one was excited for it because of how he was treated in that movie. And then the Gambit movie was still going to star Taylor Kitsch, who played him in that movie. And people didn't want that either. I just remember that happening. And it's just really funny because 7 years later we got a Deadpool that was totally different, and we still haven't gotten the Gambit movie. So
we've got
really
two
odd.
Deadpool movies. Like that's insane.
Yeah. That we got two Deadpool movies before a Gambit movie is strange to me, for sure. So, all right, our next story is that we are getting a Sesame Street movie. I didn't realize this was happening, but apparently it's been in the works for a while. So this one, they've gotten a director, and his name is Jonathan Crisell, I think is how you pronounce that, who is the co-creator of Portlandia. And it's got a screenplay by Mike Rizzolio and Chris Galletta. I don't know who they are. But anyway, this would be the first time they have a feature film in theaters since The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland back in 1999, I think. I can't remember what year that is, but they've only had two others. They had that one, and they had Follow That Bird way back in the 80s. And this would be the first time. Now, I would say that I'm not super, like, hopeful that this will work, if not for the fact that we got a really good Muppets movie back in 2011. I haven't seen the sequel, so I've heard kind of middling things, but the first Muppets movie was really good. I feel like if they take that kind of approach to it, this should work. And I think that it should be something akin to that, in terms of being very kind of self-aware and also very sweet. There's definitely if the Muppets was anything, it was sweet. And I think that if they did something in that vein, then we would be in good hands. So yeah, not much more to say. We obviously don't know what the movie's going to be about. It would be interesting to see this in the wake of the Bert and Ernie controversy that happened a few weeks ago, with all the stuff about whether or not they're in a relationship that's more than a friendship. It'll be interesting to see how a movie would be received, how the news of one would be received, how they would handle those characters. But that's really the only thing that we know, is that they'll obviously be in it. I'm sure the Big Bird will. It'll be interesting. So what are your thoughts about all this? Do you desperately want to see a Sesame Street movie, or do you care in any particular way?
All right, so Joel, let me paint you a picture. It is August 24th, and there is a gentleman that he's just kind of bored, and he wants to go see a movie. We don't know who his name is yet. He's just kind of like a stranger. He buys a ticket for the Happy Time Murders. He sits down, and he realizes he was so shocked and appalled that he must do something about that. And who is this person, you may ask? It was probably a Sesame Street producer that got up in anger and was like, okay, well, we tried to sue you. It didn't work. So now we're going to make a movie and try to upstage you there. So that's what I imagine how this happened, which I still think it's funny because Sesame Street is currently on a streaming service that has softcore porn, but I'm just reporting the facts.
No. I know that they were, but HBO just removed a lot of their adult stuff, so it's no longer.
There's still adult stuff on there.
Well, I know, but I mean, the stuff that you're talking about is not on there anymore.
True, but it's just funny. But anyways, as far as the actual news goes, sure. We have to like kind of see it in action. Are they going to go more like their show? Or are they going to kind of venture out into like cities and do what the Muppets did and be self-aware? Are they going to do a different route? I have no clue. But Joel and I, we grew up in the generation where Sesame Street was one of those prominent shows when we were kids. So I'd be willing to see it. But I don't think anything could top that 2011 Muppets movie because it was gold. I loved every second of that movie. I still laugh to this day at it. That movie was meant for kids, but there was a lot of adult humor in there. It was such a great balance. And then I'm actually one of the weird people that actually liked the show whenever they were on ABC or whatever, post the movies. But we'll just have to see how the Sesame Street movie kind of plays out in theaters. I'd be curious because I didn't think the Muppets would work, but it ended up working. So maybe this one will work. But it's like you said, we kind of have to see where the tone's going to go.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it fits into our current climate. All right, the next bit of news isn't really so much a bit of news as it's connected to a trailer that we're otherwise not really going to talk about. And in fact, I was just going to make a note, the fact that we had so much to talk about this week that I decided that we wouldn't do any follow-up trailers at all. Sometimes we do them for big movies, and there were some that dropped. And this was one of them. I'm just going to quickly say that I think it was a really solid trailer. It makes me more excited. The movie comes out in about a month and a half. But the main thing is the fact that there was a bit of a controversy that arose because of a reveal in it. And what am I talking about? I am talking about the Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald final trailer that dropped about a week ago. And some stuff went down. So in the middle of the trailer... I think no, maybe not in the middle of the trailer, about the 32-second mark, something like that. I think it was that timestamp. We hear the character of Credence, played by Ezra Miller, whisper a name, and then it cuts to a snake that has just transformed from a human. Now, I'm getting into kind of spoilerish territory. However, I think that a lot of people have heard the fact that Credence is going to be in this movie after apparently dying in the previous one. Kind of been in all the trailers. I think he was even in the teaser. So that's not a huge spoiler. I don't have any problem revealing that. However, if you want to remain cold to, if for instance you only watched the teaser and want to remain cold to the rest of the movie until you see it, then I would say maybe go forward 15 seconds on the little YouTube thing or whatever you use until you don't hear about us talking about this, because this is going to kind of be something of a spoiler. All right, so the big reveal is the fact that this snake is none other than Nagini. Now, for those who are uninitiated and just listening casually and have no real like history with the series, Nagini is a significant name. She was the snake that Voldemort had at his side in the Harry Potter series. She was one of the Horcruxes of Voldemort's, into which he put part of his soul in order to remain alive for evermore. And she was killed by the character Neville Longbottom in a really awesome hero shot that was perfectly captured in the How It Should Have Ended cartoon. And now we learn that she is in fact part human, and she is a character played by Claudia Kim. Now this is a pretty significant reveal to put in a trailer, and I have to wonder, first of all, why did they reveal this before the movie? Because I would have wanted to know this after. I trust J.K. Rowling. I have a feeling that she has her hand in every part of this marketing, just because she wrote the screenplay. You know, there's several layers of NDA that need to be kind of gotten through. To put something like this in a trailer is just very bold. But this is a big reveal. And apparently what she is a maledictus, which is sort of like an animagus. For the uninitiated, an animagus is somebody who can transform willingly into an animal. A maledictus is apparently only female person who can do that. But this whole thing opens up a can of worms. I know a lot of people are not a fan of Rowling for revealing a lot of this stuff after the fact, as if she has it, or to quote them, as if she has it in her head, or has had it in her head this whole time. And she has. I don't want to get into that discussion, but trust me when I say that the amount of reveals that she's given us over the past 11 years since the last book came out, she has definitely had all of this in her head. She had a backstory, an entire backstory for Dean Thomas, who was Ginny Weasley's boyfriend in the 6th book before she started dating Harry. Had a whole backstory she was going to use. She didn't. This is not a person who just pulls stuff out of her butt. This is somebody who plots very heavily, and I'm sure that all of this, apparently she's been sitting on this particular bit of information for 20 years. That's what she said on Twitter, so not really surprised by that at all. However, a bit of a controversy came about, and I kind of understand it, actually. Okay, so the gist of it is the fact that the actress who is playing it is Claudia Kim, who is an Asian American actress. And the thought is that an actress of color has been cast in the role of a seemingly unwilling snake slave, used for the bidding of one Dark Lord. Apparently, I'm assuming she's in league here with Grindelwald, although I don't know. And she is eventually Voldemort's only real confidant. So the thought is that in this primarily dominated by white series, an actress of color has been put into a role that is subservient to white people, which I kind of get. I think that I understand where that's coming from. I totally do get that. I think that maybe it still kind of goes with the series in a certain way, because this is a series about how evil people, in part at least, about how evil people will do evil things like this, like put somebody who is a minority into this situation. Maybe we shouldn't use that for drama in something like this, but that's kind of the thing that happened. But I guess I'm probably asking the wrong person, because I know that you're more of a casual fan than I am. I don't even know if you remembered who Nagini was before this, but what are your thoughts about all of this?
I had no idea what you were talking about. If you were to ask my girlfriend, she would. I'm sure her and Joel could have hours and hours upon hours of conversations near a campfire, and just like sipping on a beverage and talk about Harry Potter. I didn't know about that. But as soon as she told me the particular scene from Deathly Hallows and all that stuff, I was like, oh, okay. So like once you like tell me, then it's like, okay, I remember that. I just don't have the slightest clue of like names or any. That's just not my thing. But are we gonna segue into what we thought about the No,
Well, I mean, we can. What did you think of the trailer?
oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. It's one of those things to where I thought the first one was whatever. That first trailer to the sequel was great. The next one was great, and now this one's great. And it's like, I just want to see the movie now. So that's all I got to say on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a good trailer. It's a good trailer. I'm not going to go really like fully in depth in it, just because we have so much other stuff to talk about. But it's certainly an interesting bit of conversation that's sprung out of this. And that's, I guess, all I will say. The next bit of news is a big casting corner, whatever. I call it casting corner. There's a bunch of casting that happened in the last couple of weeks. This one happened today or yesterday. It was either today or yesterday. And that is that, of course, Steven Spielberg has his West Side Story remake coming out. And we have a lead. I have not seen West Side Story. This means nothing to me. I'm sorry, Brian, our good friend Brian, if you're listening to this. Doesn't really mean anything to me, but Ansel Elgort is going to be Tony in that remake. And they're also going to be casting the other characters pretty soon. This project is Spielberg's next film. And yeah, I mean, at some point I'm going to see the old one before I see the new one. That's generally how I work, unless I don't have time. But I do. It's a single movie. So certainly interested in watching both of those. And I like Elgort. You know, he's a little bit bland, maybe. He's capable of really good performances, though. So not many thoughts about that, but there's that. Speaking of Ryan Reynolds, he's going to be in a movie called Free Guy. Now, this is an interesting project. He's going to be a non-playable character in a video game. This is really interesting. He's basically going to be kind of essentially an avatar. That's kind of what the other characters are. I guess they're not even avatars though, because avatars replace real people. But yeah, this is an interesting project. It's going to be entirely from the point of view of a non-playable character, which that opens up an entire world of just a bunch of stuff. Really, really interesting. So that's the next one. Should be really, really cool. The following one is Seth Rogen is going to be in the sophomore directorial effort from Brandon Trost, who was the cinematographer on a lot of the comedies that Rogen's been in, including like The Disaster Artist, The Interview. He's also done a couple of Adam Sandler's movies like That's My Boy, and he's dipped his toes in horror. He was the one who shot, I think, both of Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. He's done, and I know he did The Lords of Salem, because I remember seeing that in theaters. And this is going to be his second directorial effort. A lot of people have been reporting that it's his first, but it is not. He directed a movie called The FP back in 2011. That was his first. This is certainly a bigger one, though. It's going to be a movie called In a Pickle. And it's got Seth Rogen doing some sort of thing like he's brined in a vat of pickles for 100 years. That's the character. Yeah, so I'll just read this. Seth Rogen has signed on to star in a crazy new film project in which he will play a pickle maker. And it is about a struggling laborer who immigrates to America in 1918 with dreams of building a better life for his beloved family. One day, while working at his factory job, he falls into a vat of pickles and is brined for 100 years. The brine preserves him perfectly, and when he emerges in present-day Brooklyn, he finds that he hasn't aged a day. But when he seeks out his family, he is horrified to learn that his only surviving relative is his great-grandson, Ben Greenbaum, also played by Rogen, a mild-mannered computer coder whom Herschel, that's the older character's name, can't even begin to understand. Now, apparently this is also supposed to be specifically about somebody waking up in the era of Donald Trump. That is the kind of the specific, like, they're going to be placing him. It's going to take place in, relative real life. And yeah, Trost is going to be directing this one. It's got a script by Simon Rich. This sounds like a project with a lot of real like wacky potential, and I really like the sounds of it. So that's really cool. And then the final thing, kind of bittersweet because, of course, recently Burt Reynolds passed away. And he was supposed to be in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is Tarantino's next movie. And he had not filmed any of his stuff yet. I think that he was about to, actually, within the week or something. So they have turned around very quickly and recast him with Bruce Dern, who's going to be reteaming with Tarantino after The Hateful Eight. I mean, obviously, replacing any sort of great actor is always a feat. But they've replaced him with another great actor, so I'm not complaining. Dern is one of the best. So if anybody has never seen his 1978 film The Driver, that was the main inspiration for the movie Drive. And it's a really, really solid movie, and he's great in it. So one of the best actors working, replacing another of the best actors who left behind a crazy legacy. Reynolds gave one of the best performances I think I've ever seen in Boogie Nights, and he will be missed. But in the interim, they got Dern, so I'm happy with that choice. So Chase, your thoughts on all of these?
I mean, obviously the Bruce Dern thing, it's like awesome. I mean, you're replacing gold with gold. I mean, there's really nothing more to say about that. And I'm so glad that man has had a resurgence ever since Nebraska. So
yeah,
good on him. Okay. Let me get the answer. I'll go one out of the way. Okay, I've actually never seen a West Side Story. I know, shocking. But it sounds like to me Baby Driver was one hell of an audition video, because I can't imagine how he didn't get that job if Steven Spielberg didn't watch that movie. Just because, the singing, the dancing.
And I can imagine Steven Spielberg watched that movie. He sees a lot of movies.
Exactly. So he probably saw that and was just like, hey, he could fit this role, and here we go. I don't think Ansel is all too bland. Now, he can be bland in movies, but I was really kind of taken back when I saw him in The Fault in Our Stars. I thought he was quite good in that one. But everything else has been kind of like, hey, he's there, he's serviceable, there you go. But I think under Spielberg, he might give us something special. It almost reminds me of how he took Ty Sheridan under his wing for Ready Player One. So that will be interesting. Okay, these next two, I love them. I love both of these ideas. They are so wacky and zany, and the fact that two of the wackiest actors are doing these movies. So with the Ryan Reynolds one, I have appreciated Ryan Reynolds ever since I saw him in Van Wilder, ever since I saw him in Buried. This guy is talented. You might only think of him as like, oh, he's just the Deadpool guy with one-liners. No, he's actually a really good actor. But what I really like about this kind of like Deadpool resurgence of his career, he can do whatever he wants now. And he kind of is just taking on all these like weird roles, whether it be this one or Detective Pikachu. It's like he has no shame. He's just like, listen, I've hit it big with my Deadpool character. I'm just going to go have fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. The man's a father now to like 2 kids, so maybe he just wants to do more family-friendly type of stuff, and then also still do his R-rated stuff. So I have nothing against that. He's a talented dude. The Seth Rogen thing has got to be the coolest idea I've heard for. It is going to be a comedy, right?
Yeah.
It's the craziest idea for a comedy I've heard in a while, but I cannot wait for it. It sounds like this is right up Seth's alley, in terms of tapping into like not the type of humor in Sausage Party, but kind of just the wackiness of like a Sausage Party, where they're just going to have like this crazy idea and just roll with it 100% and don't look back. Just go as crazy as you can with it. But I'm looking forward to that one the most. And also, Seth Rogen's also a great actor. I mean, the man's done just as many dramas as Ryan Reynolds, so it's just one of those things to where it doesn't matter what those two gentlemen do, I will always watch it. But I think a pretty overall solid kind of casting corner this week.
Yeah, for sure. I think my favorite bit is the Seth Rogen thing. That movie just sounds priceless to me.
It could be
And of course,
either
I
the
love
best thing ever or the stupidest thing ever.
pretty much. Although we said that about the Happy Time murders, and it fell in the middle. But
Yeah.
in any case,
Which I didn't think
hopefully
was
it's not
possible. I was just like, I was
right.
hoping
Yeah,
Happy Time Murders was going to be either evoke a terrible reaction or evoke a great reaction. And I felt the fact that I felt lukewarm on an R-rated puppet human world hybrid movie disappoints me as a person. Like
yeah,
I wish I would have felt something from that.
yeah, for sure. It was underwhelming in both directions. Okay, so guys, time for my Oscar beat, and this is actually going to be a weekly thing because just can't wait, can't waste any time here. And then we'll be obviously getting on our like what we think should win and all of that in January. But for now, I'm going to be talking weekly about some form of Oscar stuff. And this is our first category. I'm not going big with it. I'm just kind of starting with one of the the outside categories, although one that I always like following, and it's the documentary feature category. And in this case, I think that we have a bunch of really, really clear-cut contenders. Three in particular, and they're kind of the biggest documentaries so far this year. And of course, there's Neon with Three Identical Strangers, a film that we both love. Focus Features with Won't You Be My Neighbor, a film we both love. And in the case of that last one, it's the biggest documentary so far this year in terms of its box office intake. And then we have a couple of smaller ones. There's from Hulu, there's Minding the Gap, which I just recently watched. It's one of the absolute best films of the year. It's a skateboarding doc following a bunch of kids who are trying to escape their childhoods or their teenagehoods of abuse and neglect from the doldrums of Rockford, Illinois, by trying to skate their hearts out, basically. And it's got some of the best skateboarding footage I think I've ever seen. And then this movie called The Biggest Little Farm, which kind of took, I forget which one it was. I think it was TIFF by storm. And it's basically just kind of, people love this. And it's about a couple, including the documentarian of the movie, who worked to develop a sustainable farm on 200 acres outside of Los Angeles. So I've heard that it's really a good, moving documentary. Also comes from Neon, so they're doing well this year with that, and Three Identical Strangers. I think it comes out in November, so should be interesting. But I think that the clear big time front runner is RBG, which is the documentary about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It will definitely also receive a lot of secondhand viewing at the end of the year because of On the Basis of Sex, which is the Ruth Bader Ginsburg biopic starring Felicity Jones. And yeah, I think that those are definitely the contenders right now. I would say that those are probably going to be the nominees, although we should also keep watch for a movie that I just watched called Free Solo, which is about a guy who climbs mountain walls that are thousands of feet high without any protection. He doesn't wear anything like that. It's actually a sport that's surprisingly widespread, but it also has a high mortality rate, and he does it anyway. Kind of follows him. It's pretty good. Pretty good documentary. That could easily be nominated. It's kind of that, crazy, insane ride. But yeah, that comes from Nat Geo, who has a couple of movies in the competition this year. And you could also be talking about Monrovia, Indiana, which is the latest movie from Frederick Wiseman, who goes into a community, lives with it for a couple of months while filming everything, and then releases often like a 4-hour documentary. This is one of his shorter ones. It's 143 minutes, and it follows the people in the eponymous Indiana city. We also have Fahrenheit 11/9 from Michael Moore, although he's kind of left the zeitgeist a bit in the recent years, especially in the Trump years, and mostly in the Obama years when he didn't really have anything to fight against so much because he agreed with a lot of it. He didn't have a lot to say. And and now he's just kind of become something of a joke. I have a feeling that's going to work against him. People are not going to take that movie seriously. There's also Oscilloscope with the movie that we saw at Diff, which is on her shoulders. That comes out I think this month in limited release, and that could easily make a big mark. It follows a woman who was a survivor of a massacre, of a genocide, and has been working with the United Nations to fix all of the to kind of bring awareness about everything that's happening and in her country. And then also the other thing from Nat Geo is a movie called Science Fair, which opens this week in wide release, I believe. It follows a bunch of kids trying to make it to a national science fair. And yeah, so those are kind of the contenders, kind of the top 10, but I believe that RBG is going to take the cake. It's kind of the thing that's the most popular. Is about a woman in the Supreme Court, and especially right now because of all the stuff in the news. I'm not going to get into that, but I think that people are going to respond to it heavily, and I think that that's going to steer it toward wins. It's also apparently really good. I haven't seen it yet. I missed it in theaters, and it's Blu-ray's kind of hard to find, so need to look at that. But for right now, I think that that's probably going to be the one that takes the cake. So that's this week's Oscar Beat. Join me next week as I try to shake around in my head the foreign language film category. So that's what's coming next week. And Chase, any thoughts?
I think you're right. I have not seen RBG yet, but if I was in the Academy's heads right now, they're probably either going to go that way or Won't You Be My Neighbor. Now,
yeah, those are definitely.
If I was running it, if Joel was running it, I'm pretty sure if Joel isn't, if this is not his number one, it's damn close. And I think if we were to run the show, I would definitely put Three Identical Strangers way up there as like the front runner to win.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is there's also Generation Wealth.
That's true. You did love that one.
Yeah, I did, and that's the one that I would probably choose. They're both great, but Generation Wealth has a really muted response, and so I don't think that it's really super like up there with. Certainly not Three Identical Strangers or the other two, which are among the most. And in fact, actually, Minding the Gap is probably the best reviewed overall of all of them. But I think that certainly Won't You Be My Neighbor is the most successful. Three Identical Strangers really connects with people. I mean, for a good reason. But yeah, RBG just seems like the popular thing to me, which. And I think the voters are going to really keep an eye on that, especially because of all the Kavanaugh stuff that's happening right now. So, Crazy World and that movie seems to be a balm, kind of. And yeah, so I think it could very well take the cake. All right, guys, let us move into the trailers for the week. Again, I did no follow-up trailers. All 5 of these are new trailers for movies for which we have not seen any material before. So, Chase, take us through the first one.
Okay, so, Marvel's just going to run the industry in the future, and they're just going to have a movie come out every single week. But until then, we're going to get one every several months. But I feel like we just saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, and now here we are again with the newest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that would be Captain Marvel. Now, this is the Brie Larson one, and this one tells the story of Carol Danvers, as she's one of the if not the most powerful heroes in the universe. This is not going to be an origin film. From the way the trailer is kind of set up, it looks like it's going to have her come crashing down to Earth and having her memories kind of flood back to her, be like, oh wow, I've been to Earth before. I have had friends. I had a job as a pilot. So that's the approach they're going to take. And she punches an old lady. It's good stuff. Which is it's a scroll, by the way. All those stupid videos online, they're just like, why did she punch an old lady on the bus? Read the comics, you jackhole. So it is a it is a scroll, and they are shapeshifters, which we did see a brief shot of when they were coming out of the ocean in a very Fabio like fashion for an album cover. It looked like, yeah, you know, I'm not going to go crazy over this trailer, but I will say it's a good first trailer. Now, they still have a long ways to go before this movie even comes out. It doesn't even come out until March, but I think as far as a kind of like first trailer to get people acknowledged with this character and to show that symbol that people were probably confused by on Nick Fury's pager at the end of Avengers Infinity War, now they know where that came from. But I think the trailer looks solid. It looks like your typical Marvel fare. I'm excited to see new elements come into the story. One, this is not going to take place in modern time. It's taking place in the 90s. I like that. Two,
in a very specific window of the 90s too. I'll get to that in my part of this.
Oh yeah, it's a great opening shot. Like, what a great opening shot to decipher what time period this is, and just a really cool kind of pan down shot overall. But I also like the fact that the scrolls are finally being introduced, because I think that will play a huge part in future Marvel movies where we don't really know who's actually real and who's actually been a scroll this entire time. I think they're going to definitely play with that, because that's a huge comic book run. It's called The Secret Invasion, I think, and that's when the scrolls come to Earth and basically take over people's bodies. And then Brie Larson, she looks really great in the role. I think she just is a strong presence, not only in the acting world but also on a physical level. I think her suit looks really great. It kind of highlights her just powerfulness, and just I love just every time she poses in the trailer. She definitely embodies the type of person you want to follow on this journey, and I cannot wait to see her in action with everybody else with Avengers 4. So I think for a first trailer, it's good. I'm not going goo gago Cocoa Puffs for it, but as an MCU fan, I mean, I didn't expect anything less. It's a Captain Marvel trailer. We got it, and I liked it. So, Joel, what did you think of the Marvel Captain?
It's a really good trailer, and I just wanted to point out two things. One, it's insane seeing Samuel L. Jackson.
It was freaky, super freaky.
And it's straight out of his days on in the Negotiator and Die Hard with a Vengeance. The hairstyle in particular, because when he was in movies in the early 90s, he kind of there was a bit of a different cut to his hair. And this one reminded me specifically of, I haven't seen The Negotiator, but I've seen the poster. And if you go look at the poster, in fact, you should right now, Chase, just funnily enough, it is exactly this hairstyle. So it was cool seeing that, and obviously with
Clark
both eyes.
Also looked good de-aged.
Yeah,
he looked slick. Yeah. Like he looked
awesome. For sure. And then the other thing is the fact that we do know for a fact that this takes place at some point before 1996, because in the opening shot, which is also a great joke, by the way, and I'll get to that in a second, but in that opening shot, we see her smash into the roof of a Blockbuster, and we see the name, which is Blockbuster Video, and they dropped that after becoming an LLC in 1996. I did research on that, so it's definitely before that. We can definitely tell, and I would guess probably well before that. But the great joke of that opening shot, to me, and it was just as somebody who lived through the 90s, or through the latter half of the 90s and remembered them, going to a Blockbuster, I mean, if you were to fall from the sky, you would probably fall into a Blockbuster. They were so prevalent. And so I think that Marvel is really clever for doing that. It isn't just because it's a movie and they're dropping it to a movie store. It's the fact that Blockbusters were all over the place. Everywhere. There would be one every couple of streets. It was insane. And so this whole opening joke of the fact that if somebody were to fall from the sky, they would fall into a Blockbuster. it was just, it's great. But yeah, as a trailer, I mean, it's really promising. Certainly doesn't tell us a whole lot. Second trailer is gonna tell us a little bit more. I think it's gonna feature a little bit more Brie Larson. For instance, I think that they they did a good job of showing us a lot of everything, and that means that there wasn't as much Captain Marvel as I think people would expect. In fact, there are people who are complaining about that for some reason. There's not a whole lot of her in there, but it's a teaser, so can't really do that. But yeah, really, really interesting trailer for sure. I liked it. This one is the one that comes from the directors of Mississippi Grind, which is really cool. Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, really, really nice.
And Ben Mendelsohn is also in Captain Marvel. He was also in
that's right,
Mississippi
yeah.
Grind.
Yeah, gave probably one of the best performances of the entire year in that movie. And then it also has Annette Bening, who I'd forgotten she was in it because she's not in this trailer at all, but she's in this. And of course, the villain, we see Jude Law in this. So really, really good trailer. Yeah, not a whole lot to say, I guess, but at least for now, we'll probably get another one. Would you say maybe around Aquaman?
I would say no. I'm telling you. I think
but it wouldn't make sense for them not to do Aquaman because they did. They're obviously going to, release this in front of Venom, and then Aquaman. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Mary Poppins because it's kind of two days away from each other. So
I'm telling you, they're going to do the same thing they did with Infinity War as they're doing with Captain Marvel and Avengers 4. So we just got the Captain Marvel trailer. We are going to get some type of teaser for Avengers 4. I would actually say right before the Aquaman movie comes out. And then in January, I think we're going to get another trailer for Captain Marvel that's playing during a big football match. Then we have the Super Bowl, and I think they're going to do Avengers 4 Super Bowl spot like they did with Infinity War. And then, of course, one final trailer 2 weeks before Captain Marvel comes out to sell the tickets and do the same thing with Avengers 4. That would be my guess if I had to guess what they were doing.
So maybe like a teaser for Avengers in front of Aquaman, something around Super Bowl, and then maybe their final trailer in front of Shazam.
Ooh, yeah, that would actually be Disney's way to say F you to Warner Brothers.
I don't know. I think it would be helping them because it would get people in the theater. But yeah, and it would make sense, especially because I think that they're probably going to move this back unless their worldwide date is May 3rd. I have a feeling they're probably going to move this back to whatever the 26th, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, be interesting. So, all right. Our next trailer is another superhero movie. This is Dark Phoenix, which we were just talking about. Moved, even though it's so interesting because this trailer came the day before they announced the move, so it still says February 14th. It's kind of like peering into a different world.
Joel, I get angry at a lot of things in life. I can't really tell you in the past 8 months something that has made me angrier than the marketing department going, hey, let's release this trailer with this date on there and then change it a day later. That is the stupidest thing I have seen in quite some time, and the incompetency of whoever did this should be fired. That is fireable offenses to me.
Or somebody wasn't talking to somebody else. Like there had to have been something going on because the talks to move the movie had to have been happening for weeks.
Yeah,
right?
So why release the trailer or at least change it on the trailer?
Wait like 2 days. It would do nothing a whole 2 days. It would do nothing to the amount of views that it's gotten. I can't imagine. It doesn't matter what day of the week they release online, right?
And since
because they're still going to release this in theaters in front of Venom. So
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't really.
It
doesn't really matter when you release online. It's like, okay, but they're gonna see it in theaters at some point. So are they gonna edit that in time for Venom? Maybe. maybe when we see Venom, or well, you won't see it because you're seeing a screening, but
Yeah.
maybe when I see Venom on Thursday, maybe they'll have edited that. I don't know, but it's going to be super weird for. I think it's always super weird. Like if they don't go back through and edit a trailer and then send a new one out like quietly, it's always weird to me. So like we're gonna have trailers for Alita that are announcing that it's coming in December, right? And
Yeah.
then people are gonna be like, "Oh man, I can't wait!" And then 2 weeks in advance of Christmas, the people who wanted to see that movie are gonna be looking it up and like, "Where is it?" It's not doing any tickets, and then they're probably not going to have another trailer for that one that announces the new date until November, maybe I would say. So because of the fact that their marketing has to like shift now, so yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, to get into the trailer for Dark Phoenix. All right, I have been a defender of all of the team up movies, all of them. I like the original. I love X2. I even like The Last Stand, and I've liked First Class, Days of Future Past. I even liked Apocalypse. Um, I think that this trailer is kind of boring, to be completely honest. A lot of people have been posting like, "Oh my gosh, I got chills," and I don't see why. I think that it kind of looks overly grim. It's certainly interesting that they're pitting all of these characters against, the character of Jean Grey, which is what this is about. That's what the title is about, is referring to. But for me, this looks kind of overly grim and very processed aesthetically. Just looks very plastic to me in a way that Apocalypse kind of did. Yeah, I do have a problem with it on that end, but anyway, it's also kind of sad seeing Jennifer Lawrence flounder here because she was not good in Apocalypse. She's clearly not having fun with this. She's made it very clear that she does not have fun filming things as this character anymore. That's why I think that this is coming to an end, and I don't think that we're going to see her in this role anymore. I think that they're going to recast if they even bring that character back. But yeah, for me, it's just kind of an okay trailer. Not really much to talk about, honestly. And for me, it just looks overly grim and kind of in a self-serious way that's strange to me. So we'll see. I have hopes, but not super high ones. I also don't put a whole lot of stock in trailers, so there's that. But yeah, as a trailer, it doesn't really sell the movie very well to me. What's your take on it?
So I'm actually looking forward to this movie, even with all of its problems. I still like the X-Men movies, and I will give any of them a shot. I like First Class quite a bit. I love Future Past, and I love Apocalypse. This trailer, Joel is correct. It's okay at best, and it looked like it was boring itself, like even out of its own self, like towards the end of the trailer. And the major complaint I have with the entire trailer is the scope. This looks like a small movie. It looked like everything was happening in like a backyard, like in the back of the school. And I'm like, but this is the Dark Phoenix storyline. This is supposed to be like besides Apocalypse and Days of Future Past, this is supposed to be like one of the most popular storylines. And I don't know. It looked like it was bored with itself, running out of steam even towards the end. So I don't know. I'm still going to see it. Regardless, I'm still going to see it. It's the same effect I had with Venom, where I have not liked any of the trailers for Venom. But guess what? I'm still going to go see it because I'm a sucker for this genre. And I'm still a sucker for this genre, but Joel is completely correct. It's an okay trailer at best, and it just looks like no one is really caring anymore. And I hope that's not the case. I'm still looking forward to that and New Mutants, but not really a good first impression.
Yeah, to me, it's again one of these cases where it just looks like they took maybe the first like hour and then just put it into this algorithm,
Right.
and it just kind of pumped out this trailer of, create these moments or whatever, and so it just looks it doesn't look like anybody put any effort into making this trailer beyond the hard. The editing process is hard. I don't mean that isn't effortful, but it's almost they use the laziest parts of this movie to try to sell it. And so yeah, it's very underwhelming. It's the only trailer this week that's remotely underwhelming. I will just say that. It's my least favorite, and yeah, so certainly a lot more excited for Captain Marvel than for this in the long run. So all right, sir, bring us into the next trailer.
All right, so for John C. Reilly Part 1, we have Holmes and Watson, the humorous take on the Sherlock Holmes and Watson character. And I know that even before this trailer came out, I knew that Joel was going to like it because Step Brothers is one of his favorite movies of all time. And so
absolutely, and he's not lying. Literally, in a top 50, it's probably in a top 50.
So that's what I'm saying. Like,
seriously speaking, yeah.
So Joel absolutely loves the pairing of Riley and Farrell, and I do too. I absolutely love Talladega Nights. Love Step Brothers. These two are just comedic gold, and I think them tackling a more kind of satirical take on like a Sherlock Holmes or Watson story, I think is genius. And I've loved the set photos. I think the production design just looks exquisite, and they look great in the role because they're still dressed up in the day and age of that time, but it's them, so they're gonna it's gonna be humorous, but they're still playing it straight. I don't know. It's a interesting combination. But the first trailer dropped, and I gotta tell you, I like the trailer. I'm obviously Joel's gonna say something different, but I like the trailer. I think the joke setups were nice little setups, and a couple of them made me laugh. I still like the way it looks. I like them in it. Maybe the movie will be different. I do have some reservations, and it's not because of Farrell. It's not because of Riley, and it's also not because of Ray Fiennes. It is because of the director, not Ethan Cohen. Ethan Cohen. For all those people that get him confused, he was the gentleman that brought us Get Hard a few years back, and I did not like that one whatsoever. He was a part of writing Tropic Thunder. He was a part of writing Idiocracy. So he's got stuff under his belt that I cherish him for. But if you're talking about what have you done for me last, Get Hard, I did not like that movie. That was one of the worst ones I saw at South by when I went, because that was the first year and only year I ever went. So on that basis alone, I'm a little nervous. But the trailer is promising because I did like several of the bits, and I do think this is one of those cases where marketing did not want to give away some of the better jokes, and so I'm actually holding out hope that when we see the movie, it's going to just be a bomb factory of laughs. So I'm looking forward to it, even though I'm not as hyped as the gentleman sitting over there that's about to talk about it. Joel, would you like to explain people what you put on Facebook? Because as soon as the trailer dropped, I saw your Facebook post, and I was like, oh, damn, Joel loves this thing. So, Joel, take it away.
Oh, I do. And if not for another trailer, this might be my favorite one, and it's really close. But I laughed like a hyena during this, and that's what I posted on Facebook. This looks hysterical to me in every single way. I didn't see Get Hard, so I don't have the reservations that you do. I heard it was bad, but again, didn't see it. I had better things to do that week. Anyway, I saw that DreamWorks movie, Home. That's what I had to do that week. Anyway, so yeah, I think that this looks hilarious. I was a really big fan of the 2009 Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr., and this sort of seems to be attempting the same plot, but with the antics of the Step Brothers. I'll just call them that. And I think it looks hilarious in every way. I'm instantly hyped for it. It doesn't look like high art, but it looks really, really, really funny. And that might be what I'm most excited for that weekend. Well, of the big wide releases, because we also have that Welcome to Marwen movie. And then otherwise we have Mary Poppins Returns, which looks good. We have Aquaman, which looks okay. We have Bumblebee, which looks okay. But this is very much down my alley. Do, in fact, I do indeed love Step Brothers. That movie is amazing. There was somebody even this week who I think because of the trailer rewatched Step Brothers, and they tweeted, "I just watched Step Brothers and can confirm that it's a masterpiece." And I agree. It's pretty much up there. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be rewatching that, by the way, right before this comes out. I don't know if you're going to do the same, but certainly am. It's great stuff, and I feel like this will capitalize on the energy that Farrell and Riley have. And you're right. It's Riley Part 1. Not only that, but in movies whose titles have an ampersand connecting two characters' names, which is great. We'll get to the other one in a little bit, but yeah, I think this movie looks so funny, and I can't wait to see it. So, all right, guys, we reach what is maybe, if it's not Holmes and Watson, then my favorite trailer of the week is this one, and it's only a teaser, but it's Rocket Man. This is not a remake of the Disney movie from the 90s. Harlan Williams is nowhere to be found. No, this is a biopic of Sir Elton John, who is one of the greatest musical artists of our or anyone's time, I would say. And this one stars Taron Egerton in that role. And it's just a teaser, but we get to hear Egerton singing as Elton, singing the song in the title, and a bunch of images into John's very, very, very dramatic life. This is a life that's perfectly suited to cinema. There's heartbreak, there is triumph, there is a bunch of stuff. He's an icon within the LGBTQ community, so it's obviously, that part of the story is something that we need right now. And he's an icon in the music world. Revolutionized some of the ways that people play piano on stage, and I've seen him twice in concert. It's pretty amazing. He does this particular thing. I think it's actually one of his signatures now, where he will get under the piano and play it backwards while not washing his hands. It's incredible. And yeah, I can't wait to see this. Looks like Egerton is putting a lot more energy into this performance than whatever is going on in Robin Hood later this year. Certainly a lot more excited for this. Comes out next summer. And there are a few things next summer that I am more excited for than this. He's one of my favorite artists of all time, so very, very excited. Madman Across the Water is one of the best albums I've ever heard. So yeah, it's a great little teaser. Can't wait to see more from this movie. So big fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were your thoughts here?
I loved it. I love the trailer. It just reminds me of that first teaser of Bohemian Rhapsody, where they fuel it with all of their famous hits. We get to see the main actor dress in the role, act in the role, and it's just kind of cut together really quickly into the beat of the songs. And so Rocket Man was the same way, and I love it. Taron Egerton to me is one of those guys to where he's super charming and likable. In the Kingsman movies, and I've seen a couple other things with him in it, but he's really never really broken out, and I really just want him to kind of use this movie to just show us what he's got and show us that he can act in a biopic with as one of the best musicians of all time. And so, like I said, I think it had the complete effect of like a Bohemian Rhapsody, where that teaser got me from the get-go. I'm ready to go. I cannot wait to see it. So the only thing that sucks about it is that we gotta wait. We gotta wait a long time for it. But I'm really glad that Paramount's taking it on and getting into the biopic game, and just kind of doing these weird movies with like a mother, or like the Cloverfield Paradox, and then do serious stuff like this. So it's like, Paramount, you're turning things around, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, very, very strong first trailer.
Yeah, for sure. All right, sir, take us into John C. Reilly Part 2.
John C. Reilly Part 2 goes as this. Is called Stan and Ollie, and this is based on Stan Laurel and Ollie Hardy. Did I say that right? Yeah. Oh, excuse me, Oliver Hardy.
Oliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
he was known as Ollie within his circles. So.
Correct. And so they are kind of like an Abbott and Costello type of comedy duo, and they kind of go around and tour and do shows in front of crowds. And so I didn't even know this, but they are two gentlemen who were actually in the silent film era and were actually successful when they broke out of it into the talkies, because Stan is the one with the British accent, right? And then Oliver's the Southern accent.
I believe so.
Yes, and so the reason why they were so successful in that transition from being in the silent film era to the talkies is that people found it funny when they were speaking against each other, because Stan's got the very proper British accent, and then Oliver has got the kind of like Southern type of accent, to where it just, that within itself is already humorous. So they were actually successful in transitioning, and it looks nice. It looks like just a really just sweet little biopic that are really going to focus on two kind of comedians that people have probably never even heard of. And so I'm glad that there's movies like this out there to kind of put awareness to, like, hey, it's not just Charlie Chaplin. Hey, it's not just the Abbott and Costello. It's not just the Marx Brothers. We have other people in that world. And, John C. Reilly looks great. He plays Oliver Hardy. And then, of course, Stan Laurel is being played by Steve Coogan. Steve Coogan's always great. I always like watching him and stuff. So it just looks like a really strong biopic, and they look like they have really great chemistry bouncing off of each other. And I can't wait to see this movie. With two people that I was completely unaware of. Did a little research. Now I'm even more excited, because I am a huge fan of those type of comedians that were in the silent film era. I love watching Marx Brothers movies and Charlie Chaplin, so I can't wait for this one. I mean, there's really nothing bad to say about this trailer.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because it'd be interesting if we got a Fatty Arbuckle movie. I don't know if you've looked into him, but man, that would be pretty intense. But yeah, it's really interesting that they're kind of turning back to this era. It'd be interesting to see if they could do like a Marx Brothers movie. Now, it wasn't super well known, to me at least, that Laurel and Hardy ultimately came to resent each other. But that's what this story's about, is much, much later on in post-war Britain, they kind of embark on this final tour, and they have come to resent each other because of just a long degree of presence in each other's lives, I guess. And they both have dreams, and they kind of collide with each other, and it's pretty interesting. So I'm with you on this. It looks good. It looks good. So interesting. I don't think it has a U.S. release date yet, but I'll be keeping an eye on it. It's probably going to be next year. I know that it's playing at the BFI Fest in a couple weeks, but it doesn't even open in the UK until January. So I have a feeling that it's going to be in the USA not long after that. So we shall see, and certainly looking forward to it. All right, guys. So those are the trailers this week. My favorite was probably Rocket Man. And what was yours?
I would have to say so, just because I like the comic book ones, and of course Stan Oliver was good, and Holmes Watch, but that Rocket Man one was just like, that was like a powerhouse of a teaser, just like the Queen one, where it was like, hey, this movie's coming, get ready. And I was like, you know what, Paramount, I am ready. So yeah, that's my favorite too.
Cool. All right, guys. An interesting fact. I just learned this. The director of Rocket Man, guess who it is?
Who?
Dexter Fletcher.
Is it really?
It is. the
Oh my
guy who took
God.
over Bohemian Rhapsody is also the director of this. So maybe they should just do him. Like if there's ever, I don't know, a Talking Heads movie, just have him direct all of them. Okay, so our review is going to be for Hold the Dark. Now this is a new movie that released on Netflix last weekend because there wasn't really much that was interesting in theaters, so we decided to go with this one. Even though it does have a small theater presentation, it's mostly a Netflix movie. This is the latest from director Jeremy Saulnier, who directed Blue Ruin and Green Room, and all the way back in 2007, Murder Party, which is now on Netflix, although I haven't watched it yet. That was his debut, but he's since come into kind of popularity in the indie film world for having a curious approach to film violence, and this certainly continues that. So the story here stars Jeffrey Wright and Alexander Skarsgård in a dual story. One side of the story follows Wright as an author named Russell Core, who is called to a small village in Alaska called, oh goodness, I think it's like Keelut, something like that. When a boy goes missing, presumably dragged away and eaten by a wolf, and the boy's mother, played by Riley Keough, calls this man up to Alaska to find and track and kill the animal because apparently it's only the latest in a series of disappearances. Meanwhile, in some unnamed Middle Eastern country, Skarsgård's character, who is the boy's father, is in the army. He's kind of a psychopath who has no problems killing someone pretty much for any reason, although the movie's introduction to him has him killing a fellow soldier for a very twisted reason, and providing the means for somebody else to finish the job. And he comes home from war completely demented and screwed up, and with a plan to avenge his son's disappearance by any means necessary. It doesn't matter who gets in his way. If people get in his way, he will kill them, and he will kill the people who have taken his son. If it's people, if it's the animal, obviously, not. But this story takes a pretty dark turn about halfway through. So I guess you could probably figure out what that means. But in any case, I was really excited for this, being an enormous fan in particular of Green Room, which made my top 10 of 2016. And I quite liked Blue Ruin as well. It's a very striking sophomore effort from him. It made our friend Mark Dusick's top 10 of 2014. It didn't really make mine, but it's certainly a striking movie, and it kind of paved the way for something like Green Room to really blow the roof off, and I liked it quite a bit. This is another pairing between Saulnier and Macon Blair, who was the lead in Blue Ruin and had a supporting role in Green Room before making his screenwriting debut with last year's movie I Don't Want to Live in This World Anymore. I think that's what it was called, right? I Don't Want to Live in This World Anymore. I think that's what it's called. And here he also writes the screenplay, which and he has a small supporting role as well. So I was looking forward to this, but unfortunately, I think that it's a bit of a disappointment. All right, so now that I've kind of given my introduction, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Chase to give his review. Chase, go ahead.
Okay, so with Hold the Dark, I was looking forward to it because, like Joel, I really enjoyed Green Room. I remember specifically watching that in the theater, and I was just absolutely just stunned, not only because it was just a really just gritty, grindhousey type of horror film, but the violence felt so visceral and just realistic and really kind of gets under your skin. And, with the great performances from like an Anton Yelchin and like Patrick Stewart, I was like, who is this guy? Who is directing this this movie? And then when I look him up, I'm like, oh, okay, Blue Ruin. I still have not seen that, by the way. And I have Murder Party on my queue, so I will definitely check that out because it's only like 70-something minutes. It's a very short movie. So
Until now, he made short movies.
Yeah, until
So-
now, and I think he should continue to make short movies. But with Hold the Dark, I saw the trailer. I was already down for it just because of what I saw in Green Room. So watching one movie out of the 4 he's done so far is quite a testament, because I was like, I didn't see anything else prior. That was it. That's all I was going off of. Okay, so it's not a bad movie, but I don't really necessarily think it's good either. There are a lot of technical aspects about this movie that are quite amazing, whether it be the kind of cold, desolate, like dreadful look to it with the cinematography and just showing the scope of this gigantic area, and really utilizing the blues and the hues of that color. And then, of course, when you're inside and you feel the warmth of the fire, it's just, the visual look to this is not the problem. I will even go as far as to say the acting is not a problem. The acting is quite good. I really like Jeffrey Wright quite a bit on Westworld, and he actually implores that type of acting into this movie, because in that show, spoiler alert, he's not necessarily all human, and so he kind of acts robotic. And so he kind of has this like soft spoken, like, I'm going to question everything while still trying to be curious. Like, that's how he kind of does it. And so in this movie, he kind of has like this soft spoken tone, which, by the way, unless it's violence, everything in this movie is soft spoken and in really low volume. Probably not a good thing to do, but that's whatever. But he's still a great actor to where he could pull that off. He's not really a great main character to follow, but I think the acting all around, including whether it's him or all the kind of like smaller ancillary characters, they're all great. And my actually like shining moment in this movie is Skarsgård. He actually pulls from one of his shows that he's done, which was Big Little Lies, where in that show he flops back and forth, where he is extremely likable in one scene and then he's a complete a-hole in another scene. He's actually quite violent and kind of threatening and frightening and all that stuff. And so he actually, I think, can pull that off in this movie pretty well and really have this menacing type of look to him, but also you feel kind of sadness towards him, only because he's also got some really severe PTSD going on, and he's got, a fetish with killing and guns, and there's just a lot of deep sadness within you because you want to change him so much. And so acting and visually, and I will even say the music is pretty great too. It actually adds some type of adrenaline to the movie, because here is the problem with the movie. And I'm actually going to blame it all on Jeremy for this. Is the screenplay a problem? Yeah, it kind of is. It's kind of basic, to be honest with you, and it does not warrant...
So you're blaming it on Macon then?
Well...
Because you're saying the screenplay's a problem, and he wrote the screenplay.
Okay, so let me just start with this. I think the screenplay is okay at best, but I think what Jeremy did was just make it worse with the dreadful pace of it. I guess if that makes any sense. So, okay. I think the screenplay itself, it's an interesting mystery, but once it's revealed on kind of like what's going on, it kind of deflates a little bit, where the energy is just completely gone. I didn't really get into it after the certain mystery was slightly resolved and where certain bodies were and everything. I just was not invested. I didn't care, and it just did not hold my attention, because while yes, if you put this thing on mute, it's really great to watch, I just found the pace of this to be so sluggish and so boring, and I checked out super quickly. And if that's what he was going for, Jeremy, I guess, but like it doesn't work. You needed something to kind of spice this movie up and keep that energy flowing. You can have your kind of like lethargic scenes going on, rightfully so. I think what he was trying to do was emulate that kind of like cold dread and misery and just like the environment of where they're at, it just reeks of like I said, dread and misery, to where when you feel that, you don't really feel much energy. So I think he was trying to do that with the environment in terms of the way he directed this and edited this. But yeah, I think to be honest with you, that's where my main problems lie, and I'm just kind of split with this movie, because there's a lot of great aspects about it, but I think taking this somewhat okay of a screenplay and not really resolved in the end, the ending kind of made me angry. I felt like, spending 2 hours with this movie, I just felt like it was completely just unsatisfactory, and just it kind of made me angry.
I have a theory that of why that is, and because I feel the same way, and I'll get into that in my review.
I
have a theory, and I have a feeling you'll probably agree with me here. But,
it's just, well, it's one of those things to where, like, what Jeremy does best in his movies, from what I've seen in Green Room, is that he's able to amp up tension in such a graceful way, and then just explode with this kind of like visceral violence, and that's what he's so great at. The problem with this is everything else is so slow and so lethargic that when it does spike with violence, yes, it's slightly exciting, but then you want it to keep getting better, but it just keeps going at this sluggish pace, to where when it finally gets to the end, you're like, what is the ending to this? What is the ending that's going to make me go, okay, maybe slow in some parts, but it ended strongly. But it didn't, and that is a huge issue with me, to where it never spiked, it never got better. It was it just very stagnant, and just it was such a waste of time. And I feel like this could have been better, whether it could have been punch-ups in the script, or maybe Jeremy should have gotten his hands on the script. I have no clue on how to fix this. But what I can tell you is it is 2 hours of a wasted opportunity, while having some really great visual cues for sure. And the acting itself is actually quite good, and the music is really good. For its sluggish pace, I think I'm gonna have to go with a C-, and I'm comfortable with that. I really don't. It's also one of those things to where I don't want to watch this movie again, because it was such a chore to sit through.
Yeah, I'm going a little higher with my grading, but I'm with you. I would never want to watch this thing again. It's first of all, it's one of the most depressing movies I think I've seen in a long time.
And it doesn't help that like almost every shot is like this very like cool blue, where blue is like the color of
sadness.
Of sadness, exactly. So it's like it doesn't help.
Yeah. A lot of blues. And yeah, I mean, so this is basically two movies coming together. And I think that the reason that you felt so angry about the ending is because the movie actually ends with a shootout. I think that all of the thread of the plot ends with that shootout. And you know what shootout I'm talking about.
I totally agree, because the way it's cut together, because when Joel put that on online, and he was like, oh, the shootout was really, really great. I wish there was a better movie around it. I was like, okay, that's interesting. When the shootout happens, it's good stuff. It's a well-edited scene. It's a well-directed scene. I have no issue with that. But as soon as the scene ends, it cuts to another character, and it almost feels like the movie was snipped with a pair of scissors and was like, okay, that's the end of the first one. Here's part two. And I was like, that was such a weird transition. I don't know. So I'm glad that I was not the only one that felt that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's really jarring. And it's interesting because that's one of the best scenes of the year. That shootout, I think, is brilliantly edited. It's also utterly hopeless. There's a great scene of, as our friend Mark pointed out, there's this great scene in the middle of it, of this young cop who's faced with nowhere to move. In the scene at one point, he's faced with this really high-powered assault rifle and no avenue of escape, and it's great. It has a great bit of tension. It reminds me of the best moments of Green Room, particularly the lack of being able to escape the Green Room at one point, which causes Anton Yelchin's character to stick his arm out the door. Ugh, can't even think about that. But anyway, it reminded me of something like that, and I think that is probably Um, I'm gonna say this, and this is a weird thing, but I think that was probably the best portion of work that Saul Neer had on set. That entire shoot, I can imagine that if you were to ask him what his favorite part to shoot was, it was that scene because all of his joy as a filmmaker of staging scenes of violence was alive in that scene, and it's a great scene. Unfortunately, what surrounds it is this dual narrative that it just kind of comes together, and then there's nothing. There's no payoff. I would argue that there's no payoff, not just a disappointing one, but there's no reason to care. There's nothing here that, for instance, explores Vernon, the Skarsgård character's violent tendencies. We never get any sort of insight into that. I don't even think it's PTSD like you do. I think that we genuinely do not know. We are never made to know.
There was one scene with him and his kid, and it was about hunting, and that conversation was kind of it almost showed you like what type of person he is versus how his son is. So it showed us, but it didn't show us enough.
Yeah. I mean, I feel though like somewhere in between that shot or that scene and what is happening in the present, he lost his soul almost, and I think it was probably his work in the Middle East. His introduction isn't the murder of a fellow soldier. It's this really curious scene where he's riding along as the gunner in a tank, and you get a sense of the total like futility of being a soldier right now in that particular conflict. And so it's an interesting introduction, but then we get no other exploration of this character that goes anywhere beneath the surface. And then as a protagonist, the Wright character is completely passive. He's reacting to every single other thing that's happening, and he's not actively taking any part in it except for this really random bit as a superhero during that shootout. Like that came out of nowhere to me. Particularly when he takes a part in it and how he does and how successful he is. Totally out of character. And yeah, it's just this weird you're right, it slogs. It slogs along, and we get this vaguely interesting mystery, which I figured out immediately. It's supposedly like this big surprise, and to me, it wasn't at all the fate of this kid. I won't give it away, of course, but
I will tell people that without spoiling anything, they reveal where that kid's at within like 20 minutes, and it's like,
yeah.
What's the point of
barely
following
even
the story
a mystery.
then? Yeah, it's not even a mystery.
Where it goes from there is just this kind of like almost like this weird twisted road trip movie where the two participants in the road trip are separated by some degree of miles or degree of space, because you have the Wright character kind of following along on the warpath led by the Skarsgård character, and they're participants in this trip through all this violence. But yeah, it's weird. And then I'm gonna have to disagree with you on a good portion of the performances. I felt like they never really took off. They're solid, but I don't think that they really connected with anything that Blair was trying to communicate on the page. I don't think that they really translated that to the screen. The only exception for me is James Badge Dale, who plays a detective, who actually seems to have fun with this role. And of course, he's not long for the world, so they eventually, he's eventually off screen. But it's just this weird, like this weird feeling of reaching out towards something with no convincing reason to care about it, and your hand grasps air, basically. It's a really cool setting. It's this.
Does it grab
setting
cold air?
Where does it grab cold air? It kind of does, actually. It's a very cold experience. There's not a lot of warmth here, and I genuinely don't mean that as a pun, although it works as one. I I mean, it's just a cold experience. The characters are soft spoken, like you said. It's kind of off putting how soft spoken they are to
I'm
me.
not even lying. Like every single scene, it's almost borderline whispers.
Yeah, except for the Badge Dale character, he's a bit more lively, and I would also say that the Skarsgård character has a partner named Cheon. He's played by a Native American actor named Julian Black Antelope, and he's good here. And he ends up being the one involved in that shootout, the main one, the one with the weapon. Um, and yeah, it's a great little role for him. But other than those two, it just feels like a bunch of actors who are just kind of told, okay, deliver this dialogue as muted as possible, and that's it. Don't do anything else. um, yeah, I just felt like this. It's like you said, it's just a missed opportunity, and it's
So
not
I
bad.
have
It's far.
I have a question for you. Do you think that maybe Jeremy directed them to like all be soft spoken to emphasize the material more and make it seem more dreadful and more mysterious? Do you think that maybe he used like a directing tactic to kind of amp up the script?
Probably so, because it feels like this material is a lot less, um, maybe a lot less idiosyncratic than Green Room, where you had a bunch of punk rockers as the main, or not the main characters really, but um, the graphic horror violence fodder, and then you had um, Patrick Stewart in this really showy role as the racist leader of the villains, and a bunch of other characters where they were allowed to kind of bring these characters into a tone of just the even the tones of the movie are different. The movies are different. Like it's just they're both certainly about the horrifying consequences of violence, but here there doesn't seem to be any drive behind them, and so I feel like the performances communicate that, and so the performances largely communicate emptiness. The whole thing is futile. It's not even just like a depressing. It's a nihilistic movie. It has no sense of hope. There's nothing here, and ultimately I feel like all of that is circular, and I'm just not entirely sure what the movie's trying to say about any of this. Whereas I felt like Green Room was largely about how violence in a generation can trickle down to further and further generations until all of it's just futile. But it was saying something about the futility of that violence. And here it was just empty, um, and not in a way that was particularly offensive in any way, or a waste. It was a waste of time in terms of the effort to put in some sort of miles with this story, like put in some sort of mileage. And this one, it just felt like a long road to nowhere to me. And so I'm a little bit higher than you. I think that there are strengths. Just with the setting is really interesting. It's this place that only sees sunlight for 3.5 hours at a time, and at one point, I mean, they literally say that the sun um, uh, sets at 3 o'clock and rises at 10:30 or something like that. Maybe it was 10 and 3:30. I don't know, but it was some really short period of time, and um, it's a really cool setting. It's beautiful to look at for sure. It's great cinematography, even if it's kind of that same sense of suffocation as the tone. It really does capture the Alaskan territory really well. And I like that. And it's not like this tone can't work for a story like this, but I think that they need to be saying something other than just this is a mystery that we're going to try to follow through with, and then here's the violence that comes after it without saying anything about the violence of value. And so I'm a little higher than you, but I am giving it a C plus. It's a near miss, but yeah, it's a real missed opportunity. So one of the bigger disappointments this year, considering his previous movie, especially because that movie was excellent in every way, and this one is only in a couple of aspects. And so, yeah, C plus for me on Hold the Dark. Unfortunate. But there you have it. All right, guys. So C minus for Chase, C plus for me. Let us know what you thought. If we're crazy, tell us we're crazy. If we're spot on, tell us we're spot on. Let us know in the comments. And yeah. All right. So I'm going to have two separate reviews for you guys this week. These were the two big weekend reviews. Now, Chase, did you pay attention at all to the box office? Because I don't know if you made it 2 days.
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay,
Yeah.
that's totally fine. It's fair. I was just gonna make sure before we got too far into that part of it. But all right. So my first review is gonna be for Night School. This is the new comedy from director Malcolm D. Lee of Girls Trip and Welcome Home Roscoe Jenkins. And this one stars Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart, who is also one of the screenwriters. The latter is. This one follows Hart's character Teddy, who is a barbecue store salesman who is about to inherit the company from his boss. When instead he is a near victim, has a near death experience when something explodes and he is kind of propelled backward into his car. He loses all of the insurance money when his boss leaves. So, faced with an income and a new fiance, played by Megalyn Echikunwoke, he decides that he needs to get a new job. But unfortunately, he was a high school dropout. He faced a lot of bullying in school as a kid, and he wasn't very good at studies for a reason that is kept as a surprise for some reason in the third act. And so he decides he's going to get his GED, and he does that by way of a night class taught by Haddish's character, Carrie, who has this crazy idea that she should teach by teaching. The kids should learn something, or the students, I should say, should learn something. And he's not prepared for that. He thinks he can kind of sweet talk his way through the class, which has some other members in it, played by the likes of Rob Riggle, Marilyn Ryskeb, Romany Malco, some other people who don't really matter. Al Madrigal is in it. The entire joke of his character, for instance, is that he has a Mexican accent. That is it. All right, so yeah, I wasn't excited for this. I think I pretty much made that clear when we were talking about the trailers. They didn't really sell me. I'm happy to report that it's maybe better than I was anticipating. Still not very good, though. So this one rests a lot on the talents of its two stars. And indeed, Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish are solid here. They give good performances. Teddy is a likable guy. Carrie's a likable character. And for a while, this is actually surprisingly good-natured comedy. There's the trailers try to sell it as this kind of mean-spirited slapstick fest. It's not that at all. And in fact, it has a good message. It has a lot of gentle moralizing that I didn't expect in the third act. In that way, it's like a slightly better Adam Sandler movie, I guess. One of the better ones. Unfortunately, that's the strength of the movie. That's the part of the movie that is good. There is a good sense of chemistry between them as comic actors, and they both play likable characters, and they have solid performances in this movie. But the problem is that Lee decides that he is going to fill up the supporting roster with a bunch of characters, roughly 3 times as many as we need. And all of these fellow class members, or these classmates of the Kevin Hart character, have like a single distinguishing factor, and some of them don't even have that. So, for instance, Riggle's character is a total like Dumbo. He's the dense one. Ryskip's character is the mother who resents her husband and hates her kids and has a weird sexual proclivity. Fat Joe appears as an inmate telecommuting to the class from prison. For no reason does he exist. He literally serves no narrative purpose. He just exists to be technically off screen the entire movie. Even though we see him, he doesn't have any scenes with anybody. Um, Again, the all magical character. The entire point of him being here is the fact that it's funny that he has a Mexican accent and says the word hygienist really, really poorly. Again, I don't know what he's doing here. Romany Malco plays the conspiracy theorist. There are too many characters here. Taran Killam shows up as the school principal who ends up having been the Hart character's bully in high school until the Hart character decided that he would make fun of the Killam character's third nipple, which is actually just a birthmark. So you kind of get the idea that there's a lot of really good, solid stuff here, especially when the plot turns sincere at the end. It works. Unfortunately, the movie is way, 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 way too focused on all of this silly stuff involving the other characters and all of their weird kind of characteristics, and the performances all kind of reflect that. There's way too much improvisational comedy here that can be a death to your comedy, pretty much. And so, unfortunately, I think that more of this works than I anticipated, but it doesn't really work enough to work. As a movie, I think that if they had taken an editor to this movie, which is about 5 minutes short of 2 hours, I think it could have worked way better. A lot less focus on all of the silly stuff, and a lot more focus on the surprisingly involving plot, in which a character is actually trying to make himself better, and the movie applauds him for doing that. I think this movie could have worked. Unfortunately, it only comes close to doing so, and I'm giving Night School a C+. So that's pretty much. It's interesting that I'm giving this the same rating as Hold the Dark, just because of the kind of the prestige of both movies. But that is what I'm giving it. Does this make you want to run out to see it, Chase?
No. I still have yet to finish Girls Trip, but I can still acknowledge that Tiffany Haddish is a great actress, and the bits I saw with her in Girls Trip were fine. She's got great charisma and great timing. I just thought the jokes weren't particularly funny. But when I watch stuff like The Oath, which I saw last month, where it's like she has that comedic style, but also some really great dramatic muscles too that she was flexing, and I enjoyed it. But Night School is definitely not one I want to add to my Tiffany Haddish viewing catalog. And as far as Kevin Hart goes, I don't want him to be overexposed. That's the only thing I'm worried about. I've seen a lot of the ride-alongs and stuff to where I'm just like, I'm done until I see something like good, And I even told you at the beginning of the episode with Get Hard, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just a lot of misses for me from him.
I liked Central Intelligence.
That one was fine.
Yeah, I liked that one quite a bit. I thought that he had really good chemistry with Dwayne Johnson. But I feel like maybe with that movie there was a little bit less improvisational comedy. It was very, very focused on plot, and so I think that it has a stronger foundation. This one, yeah, it isn't quite as good. It's something that I think is good for a rental, honestly. I mean, I don't think that you would mind this movie as much as you might think you had before seeing it. I think you were like me. It was not something we were looking forward to. Certainly not enough to review it, even though it's kind of the big movie of the week. But yeah, it's a bit of a letdown. So, all right, guys, and then I have another review, and this one's also going to be pretty quick. And this is Smallfoot. This is the new animated movie from Warner Animation Group. And this one stars Channing Tatum as the voice of Migo, who is a Yeti living on a mountain peak. Now, he is part of a community that has been taught certain things about their mountain peak, and I'm going to tell you those things now. These are all things written on stones, and it's going to become clear what the allegory is here very quickly. But keep with me here, guys. Don't turn off your Spreaker, iHeartRadio, whatever you're listening to this through. when I tell you the first thing that they are taught, because it's ridiculous and kind of childish and reflects poorly on the movie and whatever. I guess that's the reason it's here. But yeah, so they were basically taught that Yetis come having been expelled out of the anus of a great giant Yeti in the sky. And I'm not joking. So also they are told that they must bang a gong in order so that the great glowing snail in the sky can rise from the east and settle in the west, if that reminds you of anything. And they're also told, and this is most important, that Smallfoots do not exist. What are Smallfoots? Smallfoots are humans. They do not exist in this world. And that is what these Yetis are taught. So Migo is the latest in a family of gong ringers. They're the ones who raise the big, great glowing snail, that is the sun, if you didn't catch on, every morning, and I assume they do this at night, although they never show us that. But anyway, yeah, so he is the latest in a family of gong ringers, and one day he's practicing and overshoots and lands just outside the village, just in time to see a plane crash and its pilot eject. And he sees the pilot, and the pilot is human, so he is convinced that he has seen a Smallfoot, yet the Great Stonekeeper, voiced by Common, casts him out of the village. And much to the chagrin of his father, Dorgal, who's voiced by Danny DeVito. And so this kind of starts him on a path of rebelling against the written ancient texts of a community. What does that remind you of, Chase?
I really don't know.
Yeah, no, right? It can't be religion. All right, so this movie is cute, I guess. The movie ultimately becomes a bid for him to prove that Smallfoots exist to the members of his community by joining a group that doubt the veracity of the stones. And interestingly enough, this is a really ambitious movie. There's a lot going on here, a lot being said about kind of this community that will believe whatever's told to them. And yeah, I think that this material could have worked had a studio like Studio Ghibli been behind it. I think that it's exactly the right kind of allegory, the right kind of story that could be given a much softer, gentler treatment than we get here, which is a very, very broad comedy and a kind of a raggedy musical. Surprisingly enough, I did not know going in that this was a musical, but it is. There's music numbers. Because he eventually meets the leader of a rebellious group, who happens to be the Stonekeeper's daughter, Michi, voiced by Zendaya. And of course, because Zendaya is a pop star, you got to have music in here, and so she gets a number. The problem with the songs is what I call Greatest Showman. Greatest Showman syndrome, which is that the lyrics are all great, and I think that we can both agree on that with The Greatest Showman. The lyrics are great. The problem is we can't hear them because these songs are overmixed, and that is another problem here. There's this great number that she has that is an anthem about discovery and curiosity that's drowned out by the mix, and it's really annoying because I would have liked to hear that song.
Joel, what are you talking about? The Beauty and the Beast remake had awesome mixes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could also be called Beauty and the Beast remake syndrome, but that's not as short a name as Greatest Showman syndrome.
That's true, and the Greatest Showman is actually catchier than the Beauty and the Beast one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, then the arrangements in the Beauty and the Beast remake.
Oh no,
and also
I meant if we had to call it like a certain syndrome, the Greatest Showman syndrome.
Oh,
I
see what you. Yeah. Because it's only three words. A lot cleaner, as Sean Parker would say. So yeah, it's cute enough, but the problem is that this really ambitious material is given such an ordinary and completely just very, very broad, basic treatment from director Cary Kirkpatrick, who's kind of a legend in the animation field. I'm sure that even you recognize that name, right? I mean, he's Rugrats, and I think
Oh
Rugrats
yeah.
and Jimmy Neutron, and
Oh yeah.
I mean
I
the
mean
dude, the
that was our
dude's
childhood.
yeah, absolutely. He's absolutely yeah. He's a big name, and usually he would be perfect for stuff like this because I'm a big fan of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, for instance, and he directed that. I'm pretty sure he was definitely heavily involved in it. So certainly perfect for this material, but unfortunately, it's such a basic treatment of this really ambitious screenplay um, that by him and Claire Sierra, and I think it's based on a book that it just kind of betrays itself. Ultimately, it's got a really strong start. Eventually, the plot, another plot shows up when a human, kind of a Steve Irwin type who's English and a douchebag, named Percy, voiced by James Corden, wants to up the ratings of his animal. Where he has a television program where he follows around animal species. And he wants to up the ratings by any means necessary, even if it means affecting his integrity. And so he wants to fake a Yeti sighting, and in the process he actually sights a Yeti, which is an irony, of course. And he learns a bit about them, and of course grows a conscience, grows integrity along the way. It's not any sort of secret. I'm not really giving anything away there. It's the typical thing that you would find with a story like that. Um, and unfortunately, it's also broad and completely basic that it just doesn't really take off. It's cute enough. You tolerate it while it's playing. It has nice animation, although definitely not on the level of, stuff like Pixar or DreamWorks. Good voice work, I guess. I think that Common was probably my favorite one because of the unexpected way that he voices the Stonekeeper, not as an inevitable villain, as just a guy who really wants to exert control by the ways that he understands, and he genuinely does not understand any world in which the stones are not true. And ultimately, it doesn't take the character any darker to any darker place than that. And I like that. I liked how Common voiced that. But it's just such a total whiff, just a fluffy piece of forgettable animation, and it's just there's not much effort here beyond the obvious. So unfortunately, I'm going to be giving it a C. It's my least favorite movie of the week, and it's I think the highest rated on Rotten Tomatoes. I think, which is ironic, but yeah. So that's pretty much my take on Smallfoot. It's that it's just okay. So anyway, C for Smallfoot, C plus for, and yes, it is. Just looked. Smallfoot is at 70%, which compares to the 67% that Hold the Dark has and the 30% that Night School has. So yeah, I was the weird guy who liked Night School more than Smallfoot. In any case, those are my ratings for those. Let us know what you thought of them, if you even saw them, and if I'm wrong about either, just let me know. So those are my ratings, and now we are turning to Chase's favorite time of the week. Oh no, never mind. I guess not this time because
Yeah,
you
not
already
not this
know.
particular time.
Not this particular time. Well, I'll just go ahead and report it though. The box office numbers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because, I don't have it pulled up here though. Let me see. All right. So weekend numbers. Now, of course, these are the actuals from Monday. Hold up. Okay, so at number 5 we had The Nun, which dropped 2 spaces with 5.4 million. It has a total gross of 109 and a worldwide gross of 329.6 with a $22 million budget. It's made a few cents. Let's just say that. There's definitely going to be a The Nun 2, even though no one wants that. All right, and then At number 4, dropping 2 spaces again, is A Simple Favor with 6.5 million for a total domestic gross of 43 and a worldwide gross of 63.6. It doesn't have a listed budget, but I'm sure it's doing fine. At number 3, dropping from number 1, yet again, 2 spaces, we have The House with the Clock in Its Walls, or, as Chase loved it when I called it this, my nickname for the movie. Do you remember it?
Would you say, like, the house
it
with
was
that
the
thing
house.
in it?
No, The House with Clock Walls or whatever.
Oh, yeah, the house with clock walls or whatever.
I know, right? Made 12.6 million for a domestic total of 45.5 and a worldwide total of 54.6. It's kind of struggling a bit. Not a huge success. It's got a $42 million budget. That might be why. Crazy high for something like that. I guess I should tell people that I saw it and it was okay. This is one of the movies that I was going to review last week. It was okay. It's another C+ thing for me. And then debuting at number 2 is Smallfoot with 23 million. Not a great opening for that one, although it doesn't have a listed budget, so I don't know, relative to the budget, I don't know how that is. But it has a worldwide debut of 39.6 million. Not good. And then debuting at number 1, big success, Night School, 27.3 million, and a worldwide debut of 34.8, and it's got a $29 million budget. So it's already made its baseline budget back, and it's going to be well on its way, especially on streaming, to making big bucks. Good opening for that one. And let's see. So otherwise, Hellfest opened at number 6 with 5.1 million. That's okay, but of course it's really cheap. 5.5 million, I think, was the budget, so pretty good. I mentioned Free Solo. I'm going to be reviewing that for Dallas movie screenings next week, but it opened in 4 theaters and made 290,000. Pretty good opening. By far the highest per theater average opening of the week. It made, get this, Chase, $72,000 per theater. In 4 theaters. Is that not insane to you?
That's just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's the highest I've seen in a long time, like per theater average. And also really good per theater average was The Old Man and the Gun, which opened in limited release 5 theaters, made 142,000. So 28,000 per theater, pretty high. Let's see, any big rises that are in the top 50? Science Fair had its 3rd weekend in release, opened in a few more theaters, rose 242%, made 62,000. It's pretty good. Sisters Brothers, which I just saw yesterday, rose 101% in its 2nd week, made 233,000. Let's see, Colette, which is the new Keira Knightley movie about the artist, rose 139% in its 2nd week, 386,000. Pretty good. Hard Falls, Assassination Nation. Nobody wanted to see that apparently because it lost 368 theaters and dropped 80% from its first weekend, from 15 to 29.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I know. Not good. Not good at all. It only made $206,000 in its 2nd weekend. I haven't seen that one, but whatever. Let's see, kind of holdovers from the previous week. Of course, Life itself completely bombed. I know you saw that and hated it.
Oh, so bad.
Yeah, it bombed. It bombed in its opening weekend. It opened at like number 11 or 12.
Yeah, it was number 11.
Yeah, and it dropped another 69% from 11 to 17, and it only made $658,000 in its 2nd weekend. Not good because that's a wide release, and it's still in like 2,200 theaters. So, to put it in perspective, the Little Women movie from PureFlix that opened this weekend made more money, $705,000. It opened at number 16. So,
and it was also playing in 643 theaters.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Good Lord.
And then that the My Hero Academia movie that opened in limited release made $1 million. That's a huge success for them. That's going to keep a bunch of seasons going, I'm sure. It's a really popular anime series. And then let's see. Doot. What was the other thing that opened? The
It looked
Predator
like
dropped more.
Monsters and Men opened.
Oh yeah, Monsters and Men opened to 118,000. I'm gonna probably see that on DVD, but it's one of our friend Mark's newest best 10 best contenders. Pretty good. That's pretty much it, guys. Oh, Blaze rose 10%. Pretty good. I like that movie a lot. Mandy that was the one that I was looking for. Not making a whole lot of money at the box office, but that movie never was. It's a really crazy Nicolas Cage movie where he has a chainsaw fight. Pretty cool. Very much like Only God Forgives in terms of its style, but I quite liked it. That's one that I reviewed a couple weeks ago. So anyway, guys, there you go. That's the news this week. Next week's going to be big because we have A Star is Born. That's going to be our main review. And I'll have a couple of others. Of course, you can probably figure out what one of those are. I guess I'll just say that it's Venom.
It's like a turd rolling in the wind.
Eyes, lungs, pancreas. Okay. I cannot get that out of my head.
I can't wait until Sony calls upon Joel and I to write Venom 2. It's going to be great.
Oh, man. I'm just going to have them all say eyes, lungs, pancreas the entire time. That's the only line of dialogue in the entire movie. All right, yeah. So I'm going to be having a couple of extra reviews. One of those is, of course, that one, but the other one I won't reveal yet. So then we'll have A Star is Born. Super excited for that. Seeing it 7 p.m. Thursday, so I'm really excited for that one. All right, guys. That's pretty much it for the episode. You can find me on joelonfilm.com. I reviewed not only these 3 movies, but I also have reviews at home of The Land of Steady Habits and Quincy, which are 2 other Netflix originals, and also Damsel, which is now on DVD. So you can find all those reviews at joelonfilm.com. You can also find me on Twitter at RealJoelCopling. And on Letterboxd at J Copling. You can also find some of my writing at Dallas Movie Screenings. I've actually taken on Chase doesn't even know this. So I've had private discussions with the person that we write for that I'm going to be taking on a slightly heavier workload for them. I'm just basically reviewing a bunch of screeners whenever they come out. So I'll be writing a lot more for them in the near future, and I've got 2 reviews next weekend for them. So you can find my writing there, and everywhere else that I mentioned. So, Chase, where can people find you if they want to?
Well, you guys can follow me on Twitter at RealChaseLee. Subscribe to my YouTube channel when I'll just throw up a lot of different reviews. Like I'll throw my Venom review, The Oath, The Hate You Give, Bad Times at El Royale, all stuff that we're not even going to review on this show. You can go to my YouTube channel for that. And of course, if you're listening to this show on Castbox, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, iTunes, Spreaker, wherever you guys are listening to us, please spread it around and let people know this is the definitive movie podcast that you just like listening to. And also, just to let you guys know, next week, or I guess later this week, it will not be on Sunday. It will be on Monday, October 8th. Did we say 7 or 7:30?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock for A Star is Born, and then the following week, our first Man episode will be that Sunday night. So that will be a Sunday episode. But then the Halloween episode will be a different day. We're still figuring that out, and then of course the next week should still be on Sunday. So kind of a wonky month, but I'm just letting you guys know. That's what to look forward to. So there you go. Joel, did you have any other closing remarks?
No, sir. That's pretty much it.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Real Me and Colin, a movie podcast. This has been episode 248. Next week, 249, with Bradley Cooper going up against a turd in the wind. It's going to be quite a showdown. I cannot wait. Actually, my favorite part before I play the outro song, I cannot wait to see the box office results. That's actually my favorite thing to look forward to this coming week. So
it's gonna be so close. Oh my gosh,
it's gonna be close, and I cannot wait to
Yeah.
see what comes out on top by like $2.50. So that is Joel over there. I am Chase. We'll see you guys next week for another amazing episode of this show. Bye-bye.
Bye.